Yes, William, I can see your hand, but I don't know how to unmute you. So probably...
It's allowed to talk.
Sorry, Ivan.
It's called allowed to talk. So you hover over a person and there's two buttons, allowed to talk and more.
I see only one button named chat.
Well, I've just unmuted him. William, can you talk?
Yes, now I see that William is unmuted.
Alexei, I found the button. Can you see allowed to talk?
No, I cannot. Oh, yeah. Now I can see mute and allowed to talk. Perfect. Okay, welcome to ClickHouse Meetup. And we will start in about 10 minutes. I'm very happy to see you in the list of participants. I'm especially happy to see many familiar names. For example, I'm very happy to see Shang here, if I pronounce your name correctly. By the way, let me tell you about the rules today. You can listen us on Zoom and also on YouTube if YouTube is available for you. And you can ask questions directly on Zoom. If you want to ask your question, just push the button to raise your hand. It looks like this. I will see your hand and I will allow you to talk, and you can ask your question online. And also we accept questions in our chat. You can also post your questions on WeChat group or in English Telegram channel. If you post your question on WeChat, it will be transferred to me and I will answer online. And now we have about 10 minutes for some questions and answers before our meetup. So before we will start, okay, I see WTZHU. Yeah, you can talk. It's a strange nickname, WTZHU. But yes, please. I see your question in chat, but...
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
And I typed my question to the chat room. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. I can read. It's quite a long question, but I will read.
You can read aloud.
Yeah, I see your question. Just a minute. Yeah, I understand your question. So you defined load balancing to in order, and you expect that almost all queries should go to the first listed replica. But you can see that some queries still goes to the second replica. But the question is, what is the ratio between these queries? Do you see that only a little amount of queries go to second replica, or they are distributed uniformly as in order just don't work? Is there only some queries go to second replica, or half to first, half to second? I will type it. Right now I cannot hear you. I
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. I am wondering, why does this configuration, max replica delay for distributed queries, doesn't work? I mean, for my opinion, this configuration, when this configuration is set to 0, that distributed query will not consider the delays or errors when selecting replicas. But it still seems like a lot of queries hit replica, second replica. I don't understand it.
First, I have to note that replication delay is not updated instantly. It can be actually updated with some delay. But first, what is your intention in this configuration? You set up in order. So you want all queries to direct it to the first replica, right?
Okay.
Regardless to delay.
Let me make it clear. The first replicas, which offers every read service. That means no connection will connect to the second replica when they are reading data. That's why I set this configuration to 0, because no queries will hit to the second replica for the first time, but the first replicas will direct those queries, dispatch those queries to the second replicas, the other shards. I mean, distributed queries. I mean.
By the way, you can check system.clusters table, and there should be a column named errors number. And if the first replica has some errors, larger amount of errors than the second replica, queries will be directed to the second replica. I mean, some network errors, whatever. So by default, they should go to first replica, but if there are any network errors, some queries will go to second replica. That's normal.
Considering this network errors, I'm wondering what is those error, or how can I see those error from server or logs?
All these errors recorded in system.events table. There is a metric named distributed connection fail try. And whenever we cannot connect to some server, this value is incremented.
Okay, I'll check it.
System.events, and the metric name is distributed fail try.
Okay.
So maybe it is too difficult question to answer right now, and I can answer later.
Do you think it is related with the outdated version?
It may be related to this version, but most likely not, because it is yes, it is outdated version, but it is the version with long-term support. So we backport all bug fixes, patches to this version and release updates. Patch updates for version 19.14.
Okay, and I am using this version on my production environment. Do you suggest if I want to upgrade my version, well, it doesn't hurt my query pattern, or that doesn't damage my production service, which version is safe for me to upgrade?
First, upgrade on testing environment.
Sorry, I didn't get.
Update on testing environment first. Don't update on production before you have update on testing. You should have a testing environment.
Yes, sure.
Only after you test the new version for your scenarios very carefully, you can proceed and update on production. And what version do I recommend? Today, I recommend version 20.3. It is the next version with long-term support.
Okay.
Okay, and now is the time to finally start our meetup. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to ClickHouse Meetup Online. I have one presentation today about ClickHouse new features and quick roadmap. And this presentation is for about 20 or 40 minutes. And after this presentation, we will have infinite questions and answers section. Let me tell you about the rules. To ask your question, you should push the button in Zoom named Raise Your Hand. I will see you. I will unmute your microphone and you can ask your question. Also, you can ask your question in Zoom chat or in WeChat group or in Telegram channel. When you ask your question on WeChat, my colleagues will transfer this question to me and I will answer. So let's start with my presentation about ClickHouse new features. I will share my screen.
Actually, can we wait like 1 or 2 more minutes? WeChat notifications are just getting started.
Sure, we can wait additional 5 minutes or so.
Maybe someone has one more question.
Yes, if you have more questions, we have additional 5 minutes. Raise your hand and you can ask. I see many interesting people in the list. People from all over the world. We have people from China, from Russia, probably someone from Japan, from Macau, yeah. Panko John from Macau. Do you have any questions to me that you can ask right now? Felixoid Sage.
Yeah, hello. Basically, the question regarding LTS version, it is good somehow to distinguish it from the regular updated version, and maybe it is a good idea to build dedicated package for it, like with the LTS suffix.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but actually the package for LTS version is the same in content that for original version. We just release some version and then we decide to make it long-term support. But that's a good idea, but probably we should have different names for the same package. So the same version will be available under original name and LTS name.
Yeah, exactly. To avoid accidental upgrade to non-LTS, because then another stable will be published and it could cause unnecessary upgrades.
Yeah, so idea is the following. You just install ClickHouse server LTS, and when you do update, it will be updated only to the next LTS version.
Yep.
Okay, I will write it down and probably we will do that.
Thank you.
Next question about will ClickHouse support HDFS HA? Do you mean HA name nodes for HDFS or what? So what exactly should we support? How exactly it does not work in expected way right now? Yeah. So we are using libhdfs3 library, and this is some detail. Yeah, I know some detail of implementation of this library. And when we specify some address of name nodes, should we just allow to specify multiple name nodes or what? By the way, I'm not an expert in HDFS, so I can miss some details. If you can provide some examples on GitHub issue, it will help. Okay, should we start now? Yeah, probably we should start.
Yeah, let's start.
I will share my screen. And my presentation is about ClickHouse features for winter and spring this year. So what is the first and probably the most appreciated? But before I will start with the new features, I want to show you the list of what I was presented in our previous meetups. Our previous meetup was held in New York in February, only a few months ago, and there are multiple new features that I am not going to tell you today. But they are not so new, but probably you can find something new for you, and I want you to select just one point from this list, and you can ask me online and I will explain this feature for you. What are you interested in the most? So raise your hand and I will explain the most interested feature for you. What are you interested the most from this list? The question from Sandy Lee. When will ClickHouse be auto-drive database? Auto-driven database. So what do you mean? Some auto configuration or automatic data placement on cluster or automatic data resharding? What do you mean? Sandy Lee, your question is a bit okay. The second one, but I already forgot what
Data placement and rebalancing.
Data placement and rebalancing. There are multiple tasks on this topic, and the first one is to allow to plug in cloud storage into ClickHouse. What I mean for cloud storage? First, it is S3 compatible storage for cold data. So you will be able to place hot data on local file system and less fresh data on separate object storage like S3. It will allow to scale ClickHouse in terms of storage. But this is not the complete solution because it will not solve automatic scaling in terms of CPU memory, only in terms of storage. But it will be a good step in that direction. So let me proceed with some new features. The first and the most appreciated is role-based access control. It is about managing of users, management of access to databases, tables, and even columns. It's about assigning some roles to users. And this is implemented with familiar syntax that you can find in other databases that you are using. Like MySQL, Postgres, we did not reinvent the wheel. We just pick the syntax that is already familiar. It is available starting from version 20.4. This is the next version we are going to release. And I would like to demonstrate this feature for you. Let me show you the demo. I will run ClickHouse server directly on my machine. I will enlarge the font so you will be able to see it. This is ClickHouse server, and I will log into this server with ClickHouse client and try to execute some query like create some user. Okay, the user is created, but I have to show you how to enable this feature. To enable it, you have to specify that some user, like default user, is available to manage access rules. This is controlled with access management setting. So now I will try to execute to create user with some authentication rules. I will just copy paste some queries from my presentation, and I will create a user that is identified with password hello. My query contains identified with some hash. And this query is interpreted, and password that I typed is translated to this hash. So now I can test if it will work. If I did not specify the password, I get clear exception message. I will log in and try to execute some query to read data from my table. Select count from test.hits. When I execute this query, I get error message. Not enough privileges. It's necessary to have grant for select for some column named parsed params.key5 on table test.hits. So why do I have to have grant on this specific column? Because my query is just select count, and to execute select count, it have to read the smallest column from the table. And the smallest column is parsed params key 5. So I have to grant access to this column or to all columns in the table. I will try to do it with this query grant select on test hits to user test. When I execute it, I get exception because the user test cannot grant something to itself. The user was created without grant option. I have to log in with my super user default and provide the same grant. And now everything is working as expected. No surprise, it is working perfectly. So what is the next? The next is about non-blocking alter queries. So what was the issue with alter queries? When you are executing these queries, alter must wait for all already executing selects and inserts. It will wait for them to complete, and at the same time, new select and insert queries will wait for alter query to complete. So alter is blocked by previous select and inserts, and next selects and inserts are blocked by this alter. But this was until recently. In version 20.3, this is no longer the case. Now, alter queries don't block subsequent select and inserts, and they also don't block merges. So data will continue to merge in background. Alter query will continue to execute at the same moment of time. And you will not get errors like too many parts, merges are significantly slower, whatever. And as a bonus, it allowed us to implement alter rename column query. Maybe you will be surprised if you did not notice that alter rename column was not available before. But yes, it was not available. There was no way to rename column in ClickHouse table. Now we have this implemented, just rename column and it will be processed. The query is almost free. It just changes metadata in our data parts. And this is available from version, alter rename column is available from version 20.4. So what is the next? What is more for alter? Also, we have alter materialize TTL. What is it? In ClickHouse, you can specify various TTL expressions for tables and for columns. These expressions allow to manage how long you want to store your data. Do you want to store your data forever, or you want to remove some data after some time? For example, you can specify that data in my table will be stored for a year, but for specific column, like IP address, you may want to remove data after just single month. And you can add or remove TTL expressions for your tables with alter queries. Just alter add TTL. But you may notice that TTL to work should be calculated. And TTL expression will be calculated only for data that was inserted after you define these expressions. For all data before TTL was created, expressions was not calculated and data will not be removed. But now we have specific alter materialized TTL query. When you execute this query, TTL will be calculated for all data in your table and data can be removed according to these expressions. Also, we have alter move partition to move partition between tables with identical structure. We already had alter copy partition, now we have alter move. And next is also one of the most appreciated adaptive algorithm for join. What do you know about joins in ClickHouse? You know that ClickHouse supports joins, but the algorithm for join is only hash join. Hash join is implemented in the following way. Data from right-hand side of join is read and collected into hash table in memory. It is indexed inside hash table. Then we go and read left table. And for every record in left table, we go and locate some corresponding records in the right table. This algorithm is fast, very efficient, with the only drawback that it requires to right-hand side of join to fit in memory. What will happen if the memory is unavailable in this amount? Then you will just get exception, not enough memory, and it will not work. To make it work, we have implemented another algorithm named merge join. How merge join works? It will collect data from right table and write this data to disk in sorted format. Then we will read blocks of data from left table, sort them, and merge with the data on disk. This algorithm, merge join, is much more slow. So it's not a good choice by default. But now we also have auto algorithm. That means auto detect. When you use this algorithm, hash table will be created in memory, but when it will become large, data will be transformed, sorted, and written to disk. And merge algorithm will continue. Let me show you some demo. I have to log in to one of production machines. No, not production. To one of development servers. I will log in, then I will enlarge the font and you will be able to see. So this is my development server. I will run ClickHouse client and I will try to execute some query with join. Some heavy query. that requires merge join algorithm. In this query, I will join a table with 100 million records with itself. And the condition is quite dumb. Just some identifier equals to itself. Actually, this query is bogus. So if the optimizer in ClickHouse will be smart enough, it will be able to optimize this query and remove this join at all. But our optimizer is not so smart, so it will try to execute this query. Let me see what will happen. And as expected, it shows that not enough memory. The memory limit by default is just 10 gigabytes. By the way, what will happen if we will increase memory limit? I will check how much memory we have on this server. And we have 128 gigabytes. So I can just increase memory limit. Let it be 50 gigabytes. By the way, one of the new features, just a small but a little but very convenient, is to allow to specify the size amount with a suffix, just 50G. Now, when I execute this query, probably the memory amount will be enough. Yes, it was processed in just 18 seconds. But what if I have memory constrained server with not so much memory? I will return memory limit to just 10 gigabytes and execute again, but I want to test our new join algorithm. Join algorithm equals to auto. And also, I will use one of my favorite features of ClickHouse client is the possibility to send logs from server directly to client. Send logs level equals to trace. Now I will execute the same query and I will see what will happen. It is started to execute, but the performance is much more slow because it was already switched to merge join algorithm. And also you can notice some pauses. It is going to process query, then stop for some time, that continue to process this query, then stop again. What is happening at this time? At this time, data is written to disk. Data is written to disk to some part, then again written to disk. And when it will finish, all this data will be merged. But this query is much slower, so I am not going to wait when it will finish. Let me just leave it. And I will continue with my presentation. And what else we have? Now we have date time data type with extended range. No, not with extended range, with extended resolution. If you look at our usual date time data type, you can see that the resolution is just 1 second. But with date time 64, it also has fractional part that you can specify in parameter. You specify just the number of digits after for fractional part. If you specify 3, it will be milliseconds, 6 will be microseconds, and the maximum resolution is nanoseconds. This feature is already available since version 20.1, and it was implemented by external developer from our friend company, Altinity. And what is the next? Sorry, this is in Russian. I will translate you. The next is extended range for this data type. Current data type has the range from beginning of Unix epoch from year 1970 until year 2106. This range looks quite huge, but sometimes it's not enough. The first case when it's not enough is to store historical date and time. Suppose you want to store your birthday time in ClickHouse. For my birthday time, I can do it. I'm younger. I was born after year 1970. But for many people, it's not enough. And for these people, we want to extend the range of this data type. And what is the upper limit? Currently, the upper limit is about 100 years in the future, but it is still not enough. What about astronomical time range? So we are going to make it better. What next do we have? Now we have different support for different data formats for data parts on disk for merge tree tables. You know that you cannot do frequent inserts into merge tree. The recommended frequency is just 1 insert per second. Why it is this way? Because every time you insert data into ClickHouse, data part on disk is created, and this data part contains multiple files for multiple columns. If you have a table with 100 of columns, about 200 of files will be created in file system. And it just cannot be frequently. So now we also implemented write optimized data format. In this format, all columns are stored in single file. Data is still in column-oriented format, so this file will contain data for one column, then data for another column, for third column, but all together in a single file. And it is better for file system. You will be able to specify some threshold. For example, if data part size is less than 10 megabytes, use compact data format. If it is more, transform to read optimized format, and it will still work with the same performance for selects. This is experimental feature, but it is already available in the latest release 20.3. I see that someone has raised a hand, so if you have a question, I will let you ask. Okay.
Yeah, is it like in place substitution for buffer table in Gym?
Not quite, because buffer table stores data in memory, but this data format is storing data on disk, actually in file system, but in more optimized format.
So it's better than buffer.
Not quite. Not quite. It's better in terms of durability or in terms of atomicity. But buffer tables are still more performant because they store data in memory. But I can say that we are going to develop another data format that will store data in data parts in memory, along with write ahead log. And this data format will be better than buffer table, and it will work as complete replacement for buffer tables. You will no longer need them. Okay, who won? I will unmute you.
Hello, Alexei.
Yeah.
This format is optimized for writing, but is there some impact for the reading part? Like when you do the query on this compact format, do you have some degraded performance?
Yes, you will have degraded performance, but we have a setting min bytes for white part, and you can set up that only very fresh data parts, very small data parts will be in this format. So reading from these parts will take only a little amount of time comparing to all select query. And the difference in performance will be annotizable for select. And for insert, it will be just better.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's continue. And I will show you a demo how exactly it is better. I will go to my server again. By the way, the join query is still running. And on this server, I have created two tables. One with usual white format and one with new write optimized format, only for small data parts. I will try to do frequent inserts to a table with usual format test.hitsWhite. This table has about 100 of columns. I will insert just one column, but all other columns will be inserted with default values. And I will check how many small inserts with one record I can execute in a second. I check it with a tool named ClickHouse benchmark. And I can see that the number of queries per second is less than 100, about 70, and in total I have 83 queries per second. Then I will execute the same benchmark, but with another table named hits compact. Let's compare. And now 1000 inserts are executed visibly quicker, and the number of queries per second is more than 400. So it is about 4 to 5 times better. It's a huge improvement, but you still cannot do thousands of inserts per second or even 100,000. By the way, you know that ClickHouse is capable to insert at least 100,000 of records to a table with multiple columns and up to tens of millions of records per second for some narrow table. But to achieve this performance, you still have to create some batches and to insert in batches. So this feature will improve performance for small inserts, but it is not the absolute solution. Okay, do we have another question for Felixoid Sage? I still see your hand.
Alexei?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the merge join is not finished yet. So I'm wondering, do you have some real world use cases where you really need to use the merge join instead of the hash join?
Some people say that we have some database that is very much normalized. It contains a huge number of tables, and as most of them are small dimension tables, but some of them can be large tables, and sometimes you have to join one large table with another large table. And people just ask, let's join to work even slow, but let them just work, and let this query will be able to finish even in a few hours, or maybe it will take half a day, but just let me execute this query, whatever it takes. So this is the scenario, but honestly speaking, I don't recommend this scenario, and I think that actually the performance of merge join right now is not like ClickHouse kind of performance. It is like some other system or even worse, but not like ClickHouse. For ClickHouse, the principle is do it fast or don't do it at all. So let's go to the next feature. What we have more about data formats. First, we have euro data format or euro, but please don't mix it with arrow. It's totally different. Euro and arrow. Both are Apache technologies. But what is euro? Euro is binary, structured, row-oriented format with embedded schema. It's like protobuf, but in protobuf you have separate schema in separate file. But in Euro, every message contains schema embedded into this message. And this format has great popularity for Kafka, to use with Kafka. And actually we have two different variants of this format. First is Euro and second is Euro Confluent. Euro Confluent contains some reference to schema instead of embedded schema. It will go to some schema server and load the schema from that. So this format is implemented by external contributor, and now it is available for everyone. It is already available in latest stable release 20.3. Also, we have format regexp. What is this format? Suppose you want to use ClickHouse as a replacement to a tool like Oak, AWK. In this tool, you usually parse your data with regular expressions and then do some calculations with extracted data. You can do a similar thing in ClickHouse. You just specify format regexp, and you have to specify a setting with this actual regular expression, and also you may specify a setting with how to interpret sub-patterns. For example, do you want to interpret these sub-patterns with some escaping rules? And these sub-patterns will be mapped to columns. So you can process with this format arbitrary text files, and I hope it will be very convenient. Also, it's not in the list, but we already have message pack format. And also we have Markdown format for presentation. You can select your data and format in Markdown. Quite a small feature, but very nice. We have a server handler for Prometheus, so Prometheus can go to the server and query, load some metrics, and this metrics will be exported for Prometheus. We have asynchronous update for cache dictionaries. What is it? You know that dictionaries in ClickHouse are updated in background asynchronously, but this is true only for dictionaries that are loaded as a whole, that are loaded periodically from external system. But we also have another type of layout for dictionaries named cache dictionary. For cache dictionary, data is loaded on the fly during select query. Data is kept in cache in memory, and if data is not in this cache, it will be queried directly from external system. A query will be prepared for a bunch of keys, and a bunch of records will be loaded. A bunch of records will be put in cache, and query will be processed. So cache dictionaries right now work in synchronous fashion. It is working fine, but it does not allow us to carefully specify some timeouts for loading external data, or it does not allow to continue using cached data even if it is outdated, and schedule loading in background. Now, since version 20.3, it is possible just to specify that cache dictionaries should work asynchronously. And it will work. We also have memory profiler if you want to know where all this memory for this query goes, where exactly it was allocated. We have multiple more features like full support for H3 library. What is H3 library? It is a library to process geospatial data, geographical data, using some hexagonal grid. This library is implemented by Uber, and this support is contributed not by Uber, but by some astronomical institute in Russia. They just want to count stars, just count stars with ClickHouse. Pretty cool. What else do we have? We already have LTS releases. LTS means long-term support. To explain what is and why do we need long-term support, I have to clarify our versioning schema. So our versions contain 4 numbers. Consider version 20.3.8.100 something. First number is 20. What is 20? It is just the year of release. It means nothing else. 20 means that the year is 2020. The next number, 20.3. 3 is the number of major releases. How many times a new version with new features was released? Every time we increment this version number, it means that we have some new features that was released in this version. When there are no new features, we don't increment this number. The next number, 20.3.8. What is 8? 8 is the number of patches, the number of bug fixes. Every time we have some bug fix and we want to make a new release without new features, we backport this bug fix to version 20.3 and release a new version 20.3.n+1. For example, 20.3.9. We can guarantee that the next patch release does not contain any new features and does not contain any new bugs that are associated with these new features. It only contains bug fixes. I can say that sometimes bug fixes actually can introduce new bugs, but this is just a very rare occasion. So what version, and about fourth number is just a built number. It does not mean nothing. So people often ask the question, what version of ClickHouse should I install? And it depends. It depends on, do you install ClickHouse for the first time, or do you upgrade ClickHouse? If you install ClickHouse for the first time and you did not use ClickHouse before, my suggestion is to install the latest stable version, 20.3.8. But what if you are already using ClickHouse on your servers and you want to upgrade? Also, it depends. If you want to upgrade to get some new features, you may want to install the latest stable version. If you want to upgrade just to fix some bugs, it is more reasonable to install new patch version. Suppose you have the version 19.14.10, and you can upgrade installing the version 19.14.11. It is more safe, but always install to testing environment first. This is the golden rule. Never install something to production without appropriate testing. We, as ClickHouse developers, we have testing. We have continuous integration. Our clients in our company also have testing. When we release stable version, we can say that it is considered stable according to our standards. But we cannot do 100% testing of 100% of use cases. So you have to always test by itself before installing to production. And finally, what is about LTS releases? It is about the time frame to do backports and do new patch releases. For ordinary versions, we support only the latest stable and previous major release before, and one more previous version. 3 versions at any moment of time, the latest stable and 2 previous. And you can see that our releases are quite frequently. Sometimes we release a new version every 2 weeks. So it will give you just 1.5 months for support cycle. But sometimes our clients want to install some version that we will guarantee to support for a year. And for this purpose, we have long-term support. For long-term support, we will have just 2 releases each year, and every long-term supported version will be supported for 1 year. If you have some big enterprise, slowly moving company that just wants to install one ClickHouse version and use it forever, then you have to choose LTS. But I personally recommend to use the latest stable. It is better, it contains more features, it contains more bugs associated with these features, but actually it is stable, so just go ahead and install these versions. And the current LTS version is 20.3. And now we have 2 of them, 20.3 and 19.14. What else interesting we have? Now we have a website named ClickHouse Playground. On this website, we just installed ClickHouse server inside Yandex Cloud. What is Yandex Cloud? It is like Amazon Web Services, but in Russia. Russian cloud provider. So we use their resources, allocate the cheapest virtual machine possible, virtual machine with managed ClickHouse service, and open access to this ClickHouse server to everyone on the internet. It is available on the website play.clickhouse.tech. On this website, you just type your query and this query is executed. And also, there are public credentials, public username and password. You can log into the server directly and try to hack it. If you will manage to kill ClickHouse or hack it in some unusual way, we will notice that. We will create a bug report and fix it. What is our plans for near future, for near month? First is continue to work on access control and authentication. And the first point is to integrate with LDAP for authentication. It is very useful if your company already have identity management system and you want just to plug it in inside ClickHouse. And you will not have to worry about managing users in ClickHouse itself. Next is to plug in Kerberos for authentication. So our authentication will be pluggable and you can use a variety of methods. And the next is to have LDAP as a storage for user roles and access rights. What else do we have? There is a small list and 2 points are already in green. They are already implemented and available in master, like alter rename column or non-blocking queries for table creation, drop table, rename table. It is different from non-blocking alters, but it is in the same direction. We want to remove table locks from everywhere. We want to provide a new data format for data parts, in-memory data format, as a replacement for buffer tables. We want to support the usage of object storage for cold data in merge tree. There are 2 candidates for this object storage, S3 and HDFS. For S3, this is scheduled for this summer, and for HDFS, it is probably also this summer, but with slightly less chance. So what is the point of this feature? ClickHouse is working efficiently because it is using shared nothing architecture. Shared nothing architecture means that data is stored and processed on local file system. You just read data from local HDD or SSD directly. It is fast. It doesn't use network resources. but it is not cheap and not so scalable. Suppose you want to store some parts of data on cheap cold storage, on cold storage that you can scale infinitely. And this is the case for S3. It is under development, and we are going to implement it, I hope, this summer. And the next is not for everyone, only for special people who like special architecture and special operating systems, like FreeBSD. ClickHouse works on FreeBSD, but we don't have official builds. And for some special CPU architecture, PowerPC. There are some servers on Power architecture that are big and performant and expensive. And if you are lucky to have these servers, maybe you want to consider install ClickHouse on them. Why not? And we already have patches to build ClickHouse for PowerPC. It works. And we are going to have official builds and integrate in continuous integration system. And again, another list, what we will have next. Custom HTTP handlers merged today. By the way, is John 2014 in the room? No? By the way, John is the developer of this feature. It was developed a long time ago, but we have some struggle merging it. And today it is merged. What it is? It will allow to define custom URLs for ClickHouse that will have prepared queries with substitutions. And ClickHouse will work as application server. You can pipe your data to specific URL, and this data will be inserted by insert query that is associated with this handler. You can query another handler with some parameters, and select query will be executed with some substitutions. So this is already available in master. What is next? The next is on-disk data encryption. This is for some serious enterprise companies like banking companies, insurance companies, that they have strong policies on data security. We want to add cache for subqueries, like in subquery, to avoid execution of these subqueries again and again. And another big feature is geographical dictionaries. What it is? It will allow to define some dictionary of multiple geographical areas, multiple polygons, and to locate a polygon region for some point. So you have a list. Someone wants to ask? Is there any question or not? So you have a list of coordinates, and you want to quickly locate regions like Beijing, Shanghai, like some specific cafe and restaurant in Beijing for this specific coordinate. This task is not so straightforward because you have a huge number of polygons and you have to keep these polygons in some efficient data structure in memory with some compromise of data processing speed and the size and memory usage. And about our roadmap for year 2020. By the way, year 2020 is already about 30% over, but I hope the next half of year 2020 will be much better than the first half. I hope. And we have a huge roadmap for this year. This is our official roadmap for more than 500 different tasks with detailed descriptions, with dependencies between tasks and assignees. And for today, 70 of these tasks are already done. You can go to the website and you will find this list in the documentation. But this list is in Russian language. Don't worry, you can use machine translation and I hope you will understand just something from this list. Just to note that this list is our official roadmap with the most detail possible. And that's all for my presentation. Now we can proceed to your questions. I will look at the list of participants. You can,
you can raise your hand and you can ask question in Chinese. So we have the whole Yandex ClickHouse team online, and we have William, who usually helps us with offline meetups, and he can help to translate Chinese to English if you can't ask a question in English.
Okay, and the first was Zheng Wan. Zheng Wan.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I have a question about the updating in the real time. Yeah. So I described my condition. I have a table partition by the date. Every day the data is flowing in, and every day the data is small. It is small amount of, yeah, and I have to update the data in some small batch time, like 5 minutes per time.
How many times you have to?
5 minutes. 5 minutes, yeah. But I see the performance is not acceptable because it will update the old parts of the table. I have a lot of old parts in the table. You know that. So I want to I'm a little nervous. Sorry. I want to if we have whether do we have the plan to optimize this problem?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So current implementation of updates in ClickHouse is very limited. It is even named not update, but alter update, just to let people know that this is very heavy operation. And yes, if you do update every 5 minutes, performance can be unacceptable. Sometimes you can make it better. Just don't forget to specify all conditions on where. You have to specify conditions that will filter partitions. So irrelevant dates will not be updated and not be processed. But this is not a fundamental solution. And the question was about, do we have some plans to implement better way for our data? We have this in the list for tasks for this year, but this task is in queue and probably it will go to fourth quarter this year, or even I can expect that maybe it will be postponed to the next year because actually this task is not so easy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And the next question is from Svetoslav Georgiev. Svetoslav Georgiev.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. My app is in PHP, and I've been wondering how to connect to ClickHouse from PHP. I see there's no client provided by you. There's a third-party ClickHouse client. Which one would you recommend? Because in your documentation, you link to several. Any ideas which one is the better one? Why?
Yeah, we don't have official clients for PHP, even for Python, for Node.js, for Go. All these clients are third-party clients because as a core ClickHouse team, we have to concentrate on development of ClickHouse itself. But the question is, what client do we recommend? I recommend the client with the most stars on GitHub. This criteria is pretty simple. I cannot recommend anything better. Sometimes you can see that one client is implementing native protocol, another client implements just HTTP protocol, and one client tends say that this client is more performant. But in the most cases, it does not matter too much. Just take the most popular one.
Okay, I'll try. The thing is, because I will interconnect several servers with fiber optic network, and I want to use something that will connect through this network instead of going through the external network, like is it from the internet. So I don't know, maybe I have to further rewrite some of the stuff I found.
If your server have two networks, you probably can assign different IP addresses and different host names.
Okay.
So when you query the server with one host name, it will go through one network and you don't have to modify your clients.
Okay, I think I got it. Well, that's it for now. That's pretty much everything I wanted to know, because without having it connect from PHP, I wouldn't be able to do anything else with it. So
yeah, but we are happy that there are PHP clients from community. They are used in production. Some of them are popular, and I think you can just take one of them.
okay, yeah, I will try, because for now I only run queries in the terminal and the command line, and I didn't implement ClickHouse on our application yet, but we're definitely going to, because it's like 400 times faster. I don't know.
Just as expected.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you. Have a good one.
Okay.
Actually, I can add that for PHP, we link not to GitHub, but to Packagist, which is a PHP package repository. And it shows not only stars, but like explicitly installs. So there are a few that are really popular, and the few libraries that are kind of contenders. So if you see why they're better, you can try them, but there are only a few that like have 100,000 installs.
Okay, I will check each one. All right. Thanks.
So there are a question from WTZHU. Is it a real name or? By the way, the button unmute does not work for me. Okay.
This is short for my name. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about cache. Here I execute a query periodically to warm up my data. The query is select every column from the table, and if the table increase by day, the table data increases by day. Does it help for me that I run this warm up query for on newly added data?
Most likely
Every
not,
day.
because new added data will be already in cache. And you don't have to warm up it. But it depends on memory amount on server and what is the volume of new added data.
You mean when it is inserted into the database, it is cached in memory?
Yeah. When data is written, operating system first write it in cache and only then on disk. So data will be already cached.
But how to maintain my cache over the hot data?
It's not so easy
Complicated.
because it is managed by operating system.
Okay.
Yes, you can warm up your data with a simple query. I can suggest a query select count from table where not ignore of star.
Okay. Format now. Format now.
If you write this query, it will just return 1-0. I will write it in chat just in case. This query.
Do you have any recommend?
Let's see, you haven't published it. 1 second.
Sorry. Do you have any recommendation about the warm-up frequency?
It depends on how frequently your cache is flashed, and you can investigate it and debug it with a tool, external tool named VM Touch. I will write it to a chat.
Alexei, you have to choose all panelists and attendees. So make it
Okay,
public.
I already figured it out. VM Touch. This tool allows you to check what files were cached and what portion of files were cached.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and the next question again from Svetoslav Georgiev.
Hi. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember when I was setting ClickHouse, there was a temporary folder setting. And what I usually do with database software, for example, MariaDB, I create a RAM disk and I use that one instead of writing on the SSD or HD, depending on server. would you recommend doing that for ClickHouse? And what size of the RAM would you recommend if so? For example, for MariaDB, I use like 30% of RAM for TMP. Doesn't usually fill up, but it's okay.
No, for ClickHouse, you don't have to specify separate TMP volume. It should work fine with default settings. Sometimes.
Yeah, but it is on the disk, and that's why, because the RAM is usually way faster than any array of disks.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's
Sometimes you can do it. Just mount TMPFS file system
exactly.
On some path, and
Exactly.
yeah. And
It's more like I wanted to know what the TMP is used for in ClickHouse, so I would know how much RAM to set in a TMPFS.
If you look at configuration file and look at TMP path, in this file, it is not for data for tables. It is for temporary data for query processing, like temporary data when group by don't fit in memory and data is spilled on disk. And it does not make sense to point this directory to TMP because it is used when data already not fit in RAM.
Okay, got it. Okay.
But you can use TMPFS to store some parts of table data. For this purpose, look at the storage policies in configuration file. Yeah.
Okay, I will write that down. Thank you. Storage policies.
Yeah.
Okay.
But usually it will not improve everything much. It should work quite quite fast even without this tune.
Yeah, the thing is, when it's for data that's frequently written and then deleted to preserve the SSD.
Okay. And the next question from Chidian. Okay.
Hello, Alex. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question. I see the feature handle the promises the future. Yeah, and I use the promises to write the Kafka the remote write to Kafka and to ClickHouse for data analysis. And can you explain the future handle the Prometheus?
Yeah. So Prometheus handle is to export ClickHouse metric, the metrics
Okay.
ClickHouse into Prometheus. But
okay.
Not about cold storage for Prometheus data. ClickHouse can be used
okay.
For cold storage, yeah. But it's a different feature.
Okay. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
And the next question from CJK. By the way, unmute button does not work for me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So my question is, in which scenario do I need to turn on auto feature of join? Is there any difference between the default hash join?
Hello? Yeah. Can you please repeat what feature the sound yeah, can you please repeat?
Hello?
Yeah, yeah.
So my question is, in which scenario do I need to turn on the auto join?
Yeah.
Is there any special scenario compared with default hash join?
Auto join algorithm course hash join. If you can continue to use hash join, just continue. A merge join should be activated, and auto merge algorithm should be used only if you don't have enough memory to execute joins with a default hash join algorithm. If you have enough memory, just don't use join algorithm merge or auto.
Okay, thank you.
And the next question, Zheng Wan.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
I have a question. I have I recently have compiled the version 20.3.4.10, the stable version. But I found but I compiled in my server. It had some error, which is very it has some error in the code. I think my question is whether you compile the stable version of ClickHouse from this code just released on the GitHub.
So it's difficult to understand, but I will try to repeat how did I hear you. The question is, if you have some already known some bugs in your code, you decide to release this version to stable. And to answer this question, I can say that first, we have a specific checklist of well-known bugs that are important enough or reproducible or contains regressions from previous versions or cannot or without well-known workarounds. And only after we check all the parts in this checklist, we release a new version called stable. You can see it with the version 20.4. It is not released yet. We just recently checked all marks in our release checklist. And second, all our tests have to be green to release new stable version. If some issues are covered by tests, we just cannot release new stable version if the test fails.
Okay. But the error happened when it compiles, not the running time. Okay, it's
have
compiled.
this question in writing, and it's not about what Alexei just answered. So basically, he checked out the source code of stable release that was marked as specific version and marked as stable, but it doesn't compile. But what I can see, you used CMake and make. And probably what I can guess is that the issue is that you are using make instead of Ninja. So we have like a detailed instruction for developers, and it sounds like you haven't followed it. You just used something that you guessed would work. So I'll answer your question in Q&A section with a link to developer instructions. Alexey, do you have something to add?
Yeah, and also for every release and for every commit, we have build logs. The logs of how exactly this release was built. You can take this log and reproduce, and you will get exactly the same binary.
Okay. I want to clear myself. Yeah, that the error is found in the function declaration with the argument error. It is which is very obvious. I think it's not happen. It shouldn't happen in the stable code.
Could you please post this error to our chat?
Maybe maybe I have some I have done some bad steps when using the G2. Okay.
This is possible, and another possible issue is that we always enable more hardening and more checks in our code. We enable more warnings, and we enable these warnings with error flag, warnings as errors. We enable clang tidy, and the checks from clang tidy also considered as errors. So if you compile with new options, some old stable release may not compile due to new warnings.
Okay. The error comes from the contrib directory, maybe contributed by other community or something.
This is not quite correct. Contrib directory contains third-party code, third-party libraries. Yeah. And contributed code contained everywhere. Our contributors write code to our core code base, not in some separate directory.
Okay, thank you.
So what will be the next question from one Sue? Or from Ivan, the button unmute does not work for me. You have to unmute by yourself.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, we have a ClickHouse cluster, and we write some data in one table in cluster A, and as cluster A has a limited resource, so we move the write to another cluster at the same table. Do we have a way to query from both cluster A and the cluster B?
Yes, you can do it. You can create distributed table that will contain servers from both of these clusters. And it will work as a single cluster.
But I think in the distributed table, it has a parameter, say which cluster you are build list distributed on. That means either distributed table point to the cluster A or cluster B.
You can create another cluster, named cluster C, and list the servers from both clusters, from both cluster A and cluster B in this one unified cluster.
That's interesting. Thank you. And I also have another question is, when we do the testing in the production, we see some kind of zookeeper brain split case, and may make the part parts in the ClickHouse seems not consistent between the replica. Do you guys see this kind of issue?
Yes, this is possible when network is separated and one part of ClickHouse cluster will be not available for writes, for inserts, and it will contain stale data. But when network will be again joined together, replicas will download the remaining data and will maintain consistency. So consistency will be maintained eventually after the network partition will be resolved.
But I see some errors. For example, the in a part of a replica, it has a part from 1 to 3, for example, and another replica say it has a part from 2 to 4, and they cannot merge, and then they cannot figure out which one to choose.
First, you should check system replication queue table. It will contain the tasks that replica should execute to maintain consistency. And another point, the case when there is no single source of truth, it is possible only if you actually has broken Zookeeper cluster into 2 different clusters.
Yeah.
And it is no longer a single Zookeeper cluster. In this case, it is clearly an error in operations. You should not do that. When network is split, you should not run 2 different clusters, just wait for network to merge again. But you can resolve this situation. You just have to attach one of the replicas to Zookeeper, to just a single Zookeeper cluster. So all replicas will look at the single Zookeeper cluster. And this cluster will automatically select a single source of truth, and other replicas will be synchronized to the state of the rest replicas.
Okay. So normally ClickHouse will recover from it.
Yes, it will recover if you did not break Zookeeper cluster. You can manually break Zookeeper by editing configuration file, but you should not do that. Zookeeper should work as a single cluster.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, and the next question is from YCZHU.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 questions. One question is for cache. I know that ClickHouse uses system cache by default, and there is a setting telling that you can use uncompressed cache. And I'm wondering, is the caching the data or caching the result? The query result.
For caching of source data. The only difference is that it caches data after decompression, but it is not unprocessed. It is unprocessed data.
So is there any way to cache the query result?
Currently, no.
Okay. So another question is that as we know that when ClickHouse join several table in sequence, the performance is not very good. And is there any improvement or in recent release, or is there any plan to improve that?
So the question is about joins.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
To join several table,
yeah.
not only one, yeah.
And by the way, what version of ClickHouse do you use right now?
19.
19.
Yeah.
19.
19.14.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
I can say that there are multiple improvements in joins in the recent release, but there are even more improvements still to do.
Yeah, so do we have any clear plan or timeline for that?
Yeah, we have a list of improvements that we should do for joins. There are multiple points, like we have to implement push down of conditions that is
That condition.
in on section with equality, but we have to apply some transitive rules to figure out that we can push it to another table.
Yeah.
So yes, joins is one of the most important area of work.
Okay, thank you.
Someone said that joins does not have a good solution in database. This is quite a general observation, but sometimes one solution can be better than another, and we will try to implement better solution or the best that we can. Probably we have to ask some question from WeChat group.
There's one more raised hand. Sandy Lee, haven't you raised your hand?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I noticed that compact format is designed for better write performance in small parse data. Will it also be suitable for static report result data? This data, there are many wide columns, maybe up to 20 or 30 columns, but we never do any aggregation on this data. Every query is select asterisk by date condition. We may store it in MySQL because it's for low format. But will it also be suitable for ClickHouse because we have compact format?
Yeah, you can specify some big threshold, like not 10 megabytes, but 1 terabyte threshold. So it will never be achieved, and every data part will be written in compact format.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So I want to remind you that you can ask your questions in Chinese and someone will translate, like William or maybe someone else. And meanwhile, we have a bunch of questions from chats. So you can still raise your hands while we discuss other questions, and we'll get back to you like in the middle of them. So first question from chat is the following. So you mentioned cascade materialized views on slide, and what's this?
It is when you can create one materialized view on top of another materialized view. So you will get cascade aggregation. First aggregation and subsequent further aggregation. For this purpose, you just create materialized view with select from inner table of another materialized view. By the way, I see a question, quite interesting question in Zoom chat. it's about ClickHouse support for different CPU architectures. We have x86-64, we have support for ARM 64, PowerPC 64, and the question is about MIPS. MIPS. So in China, there are local vendors like Lungson that produce CPU with MIPS architecture. Do we have any plans to support it? First question I have to ask, is it MIPS 64? If it is 64-bit, then it is more easy because our code is mostly for 64-bit architecture. Yes, C++ is portable, but we have multiple places in code where some assumptions are taken. One assumption is about little endian architecture. What about MIPS? I don't remember. I'm not an expert, so I don't remember, is it little endian or big endian or a switchable? You can find all the places in code where this assumption is taken just by searching for little endian. We always comment that this code depends on little endian. Second is unaligned reads from memory. Does MIPS architecture support unaligned reads with some reasonable performance? In most cases, we don't do unaligned reads. It is checked by undefined behavior sanitizer, so it should compile and work. And another use case is atomic variables. There also can be some difficulties. I think that you can successfully compile ClickHouse for MIPS architecture, but probably you will have to spend a couple of days to achieve this. Special compiler, I don't think so. I think that CLang and LLVM should support MIPS, but probably there is some fork of GCC from vendor. So if you will do some experiments compiling ClickHouse on MIPS, please tell me about it. You can create an issue in GitHub with all your struggles and difficulties, and probably we will be able to help. And the next question is how to understand non-blocking alter queries. That's easy. You execute alter query, and while it is executing, it will not block subsequent select and insert queries. They will work concurrently with alter. And the next question is in Chinese, so I have to translate. Or we have another question from WTZHU.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And I have a problem with the deadlock. And I raised some issues on GitHub. And Alex, you wrote back to me, maybe it's related to the outdated version. But my problem here has nothing to do with the version. When I was debugging threads through JDB, I found that ClickHouse would call the insert function when querying. It's pure query. The first question I want to ask is, why does ClickHouse call insert when query?
So you are executing select query, but you notice that there is some insert query.
Yes.
From stacks. I think that it is related to system tables. You do select, and the information about select is logged into query
yes.
log.
Yes, yes. It is right into the query log table. And okay, but it has something to do with the deadlock. I don't know why. Maybe it's version issue. Maybe it is bug fixed.
Yes, you should try the latest version 20.3, and it most likely that this deadlock was already fixed.
May I ask how many scenarios have you ever fixed about deadlocks? Just for approximate.
The question is about how many servers do I what?
Fix the deadlock.
Actually, not too many. We have multiple clusters in production, and the biggest one is more than 600 of machines. And sometimes we have noticed this deadlock, but it happens only occasionally, only on a few machines. So once about a month on a few machines on a cluster of 600 nodes. Probably the scenario of the usage scenario of this cluster is not similar to yours, or it's not so intensive for some queries. But nevertheless, it was debugged, it was investigated, and it was fixed. And in recent versions, you don't have to worry.
Okay, and the second question is, when I somehow met with deadlock, is that the best way to restart the server? Anything?
Yes, usually restart is the only way.
Okay, but I found that different restart last different duration. Does restarting do some merge background merge for files, or just detach the parts?
Yes, a server restart can be locked by background merges. And I can tell you one simple trick. If you want to restart ClickHouse server instantly, just write sudo service ClickHouse server force restart instead of restart. And it will be restarted instantly.
Can you type it to the chat room?
Can
you type it?
Yeah, I can type it.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, someone asks you which version of ClickHouse were using when you experienced these deadlocks. WT which version of ClickHouse were you using when you had some deadlocks?
Okay, this is quite old version. It is long-term support, but the specific issue of deadlocks is not possible to backport to this version due to very large changes in the code base.
Okay. I remember one deadlock is related with trace log that is recorded in the GitHub issue? And does it mean if I use less logs table, then I may meet the deadlock less, even in newer version?
In new version, there are no deadlocks associated with the system tables. And that specific deadlock with system trace log, I remember it, and I can say that it was related to query profiler, and it was already fixed.
Okay, thank you very much.
So let's get back to questions from chats.
Okay. By the way, I have two places with questions. One is Zoom chat and another is specific Zoom question and answer window.
Just let me ask them aloud. So someone needs to delete some records immediately. So waiting for alter delete to delete in background is not acceptable. Are there any options to handle this?
Yes, I can remind about one trick, but I have to explain it. It's not so easy. You just create separate table with records you want to delete or with keys of these records. Instead of deletion, you insert records into that table. And every time you query your main table, you add a condition in where key not in select key from this table with deleted records. Is that clear? I can write it in chat. This is one simple trick, how to make delete from table instantly. It is only suitable when the number of records you want to delete are not so large. But you can first delete with this trick within subquery. Then execute alter delete, and after alter delete was finished, just truncate the table with deleted records. So this table will always contain a small amount of data. Another question.
Let's move on. Yeah.
Can the order of the columns in one table affect the query performance? No, it cannot. Every column is stored separately and independent of each other. But there is one case. The order of columns in primary key can affect performance and will affect performance very greatly. It's very important to choose the right order of columns in primary key. But it does not matter what is the order of all other columns in the table.
So I want to remind that you can still raise your hands and ask question in either English, Chinese, or Russian, just in case. And the next question from chat is the following. So it's pretty similar to the question about deletes. So someone has a demand to update data about every 5 minutes, and alter updates are doing it not fast enough. So it's slow and unacceptable.
We already answered this question.
Yeah, so what's the recommended way to, so the community says that it's not like a way to do, so just use something else, but maybe we can offer something.
Sometimes you can avoid updates. You can use a solution named event sourcing. What is event sourcing? It is the case when instead of updating or deleting your records, you just insert more events into your table. And these events will be update event, delete event, or insert events. You just insert and insert and insert everything into your table, even if you want to update something. And sometimes you can calculate your analytical queries directly from this log of modifications. And you will avoid the need for updates and deletes.
Okay, let's move on. Someone used Amazon Web Services and has a large volume of data, maybe 5 billion rows a day. Do you have any suggestions about the instance type and cluster size in AWS?
First, it depends on the volume of your data. You said that you have 5 billion records every day. But what is the volume? To figure it out, you can test on small data amount and just look at the volume of data on disk and then multiply to specific proportion of your data. And from these numbers, you can figure out how many servers you should have and what will be the disk subsystem. And another criteria is what is your query scenario? How many queries do you have for recent data, for hot data? What is the volume of this hot data? If you have multiple small queries, you either have to choose servers with significant amount of memory, or at least use SSD instead of HDDs. Sometimes you have another scenario when your data is mostly archive data. So you have to maximize storage volume, but your queries are not frequent. And the latency is not so important. In this case, you can choose servers with storage volume optimized. They will have HDD queries or network HDDs. But obviously, this type of configuration will work slower. And then you just do load testing, trying to test your scenario and see how well ClickHouse will fit this scenario. By the way, we have quite a nice feature that I forgot to highlight, but I can highlight it right now. We have public performance testing results on different servers and different cloud providers. Let me open the web page and share the screen for you. One minute. So we have a web page named Performance Comparison on various hardware. And here we have multiple different variants of bare metal servers, of cloud providers, and even laptops and desktops. If I will search AWS, I will see that there are multiple variants to compare. We have servers with Intel, with AMD EPYC, even with ARM servers, Amazon Graviton. And we can compare by performance of 43 queries, and we can compare every query. So we can see that from CPU perspective, the most performant server among selected is the server with AMD EPYC. It probably has 128 logical cores, so it is scaled well. And the next is Intel server with 96 virtual CPU and a huge amount of memory. By the way, these results are crowdsourced, and we have instruction how you can obtain this result and share them with us. There is an instruction. It will take about 20 minutes to download the binary and run these tests. And it will be very appreciated if you will share these results with us. We will publish them on this web page with credits, or without if you want to share them anonymously. And we can compare our servers with cold run and subsequent runs. Second and third runs are limited by CPU, so it mostly tests CPU, and the first run is mostly limited by disk I/O. And we can see that the most performant is NVMe SSD in RAID 1 probably. By the way, there is a desktop with Intel Optane, but this is just a desktop, so it was slower, but not too much slower.
So let's move on.
Okay.
What is the expected release date of write-ahead log?
It is expected to be released in late May. So May 20th, 25, or something like that. If we will be lucky. If not, it will be early June.
So the next one. Each piece of data should be updated twice in a few seconds, or maybe a few days. How to control the merge speed and ensure timely deduplication?
You can ensure deduplication with optimized deduplicate query, but it's not a good way to execute this query frequently. It's normal to force deduplication just once a day or a few times a day, because it is implemented as complete data rewrite. All your data will be read, deduplicated, and written to a second part. You cannot just do it frequently. And optimized query is the only way to control the speed of the speed or the time of merges. There is no other way, and actually the system decides by itself in background. Most of the time it should be sufficient. You don't have to worry. Another question from Zhang.
Yeah, hello. I want to see if I want to boost my performance of ClickHouse, but is it okay to close the log some level trees to change the log level trees to error some level to gain the performance?
Most of the cases, most of the time, it will not affect performance. It will not improve performance. But if you have a huge amount of small queries, it will do. It will help. Only in the case of huge amount of small queries, when your log is really huge.
Okay, thank you.
One more raised hand.
Okay, John. John, I cannot hear you.
I can't either, yeah.
Okay.
John, maybe you can ask your question in chat and I'll read it, okay?
Another question.
I think it was WTJ.
Yeah, but okay, I will.
Thank you. I typed my question in the chat room. I want you please to tell me the metric name in system events you mentioned.
Okay, right now I will open our code because I don't remember all the names of all metrics.
Okay,
Despite the fact I'm ClickHouse developer, but I don't remember 100% of our code base.
Maybe share your screen.
Are you convenient to?
Yes, I can share my screen, but there is no many things to share. The metric is named distributed connection fail try.
Is it in system.events table?
If it has non-zero value, it will be in system.events. If there is no such metric, it means that you have no network errors.
Okay. You mean when there is no network error, there won't be this metric in the table?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So do you see this metric?
I didn't find it.
So I can congratulate you. You don't have network errors in connection to remote servers. That's great, but it does not explain.
That doesn't make
why
sense about my load balancing
Yeah.
logic.
It does not explain why do you have some queries directed to second replica, despite the fact that you use in order setting. Maybe this setting is not effective. Could you please check the following query? I will type
Okay.
in chat.
And does it help when I upgrade my version about load balancing? I didn't find any change in the code about load balancing.
I don't remember any specific changes for this load balancing, so probably not.
You want me to type? You want me to type this?
You can type this and tell me the results. Do you have load balancing setting actually changed?
There is.
So
shall I read it out to you?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So if you execute the query to distributed table, it should go to first replica. And I have no idea why some other queries sometimes go to other replicas. It's not so easy question, and it depends on your configuration. Maybe this specific queries was queried without this setting. Maybe we should look at system.query_log, and in query log there are all effective settings recorded.
Okay, more maybe it's related with max concurrent queries.
No, it is not related. If the number of concurrent queries is too large, you simply get an error and there is no failover to second replica.
Actually, we have many more questions. Maybe we should move on.
Okay, I would like to make yourself
Thank you.
Make yourself a break for 2 minutes. After this break, we will continue with more questions. And please, Ivan, select the best ones. Okay?
I'll try. So actually, meanwhile, I can answer some as well. So someone asked if ClickHouse Playground source code will be open source. It may be a pretty good web SQL IDE. As for Playground, we prepared it pretty swiftly. Actually, its code is in open source. There is a separate repository for its JavaScript and HTML and CSS. But unfortunately, it's minified, so it's hard to actually do something useful with it. And there is really not much point to keep it closed source. So we'll probably spend some time to actually make it readable back again and publish it in the readable form. but initially it wasn't intended to be like general purpose IDE. So it's still kind of focused on providing like experience for people who are new to ClickHouse, so who just want to take a look and figure out if it's useful for their use case or not. Because experienced users need kind of different features, like, I don't know, analyzing their queries, browsing data, and other kinds of modifications, while Playground is read-only and more focused on just running selects on top of pre-uploaded datasets. So the next question is about what are the updates on joint performance, and could we publish some tests for this case? We are constantly working on joint performance during like maybe the last half a year or so. So there is a lot of work to be done. Part of it has already been discussed. There are obviously a bunch of tests for joints, including joint performance tests. So we are still have this as one of top priority tasks for the upcoming months. And Alexei is back, so let's continue with other questions. So Alexei, are you back?
Yeah.
So the next question is, someone haven't understood from the slides what is custom HTTP handler.
Suppose you can define some URLs like HTTP, some host name of ClickHouse server /report, and that's it, /report. You query this URL, and under this URL, some custom SQL query is configured. This predefined SQL query will be executed. Or you query some URL like /report, question mark, some parameter equals to 1, 2, 3. And it will substitute this parameter to some select query with substitutions. So basically, custom HTTP handlers is the possibility to execute predefined queries on custom URLs.
So the next one, will the LDAP feature, hold up, support Microsoft Active Directory? Someone is using ClickHouse on premise with Microsoft stack.
It should work if it has compatible interface.
I think it has. Is there any way to extract data from Microsoft SQL Server through the change data capture? So listen to the change of database transaction log. So he would like to capture data in real time for some campaign promotion application.
I don't know any existing solutions, but probably there are some tools from Microsoft that are similar to Oracle Golden Gate or something like that. I don't remember the name. So there might be some tools specifically intended for change data capture. And what is the possible way to configure these tools? Is it possible to integrate them in ClickHouse? I just have no idea. I don't have such experience, so maybe you know better.
Yeah, sorry. So let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah, we have just a bunch of comments. I haven't filtered them. So is it possible to expose some library for others, like Spark does, so people could directly create data with ClickHouse data format, especially for some specialty data type like hyperlog log, percentile, and precise count distinct?
So the question is about Spark.
No, the question is about, could we expose some library so people could build programs that will create data in format compatible with ClickHouse?
Mm-hmm. It is technically possible to reuse ClickHouse source code as a library to create these data types. It is not so convenient because this library will depend on almost all ClickHouse code base. But also you can use a tool instead of a library. You can use a ClickHouse local tool to convert data and to create intermediate aggregations and to export them in the same format as aggregate functions do. But creating a library is technically possible.
The next one is more like feature request. So someone asks to remove the feature that column of primitive types can be null by default. So basically they want nullable by default.
Nullable by default. Yes, this is one of considered features for SQL compatibility. But right now you have to specify that the type is nullable explicitly. And this is reasonable because not nullable types work better. They work more efficiently.
So the next one is about hardware benchmark. So what is the right way to disable the cache for the first round test?
There is a script, and in the script there is a command echo 3 pipe proc sysvm drop caches. And this is the right way to drop caches.
So the next one is someone observes that inserted data into the table affects performance of select queries. So how to avoid this?
When you insert your data into the table, new data part is created. If you have more data parts, selects will work slower, but data parts are merged in background. So every time you should have not too many different data parts. So inserts can slow down your queries, but not too much. And actually, you cannot avoid it. If insert queries slow down select significantly, this should be investigated. It is not considered normal.
Okay, next one. So someone tries to run an optimized query immediately after insert. But there are some exceptions, like can't select parts. Is there a way to optimize table immediately?
Sometimes optimize will refuse to work, and there can be multiple reasons. One possible reason is lack of free space on disk. Another possible reason is that data parts are already merged in background, and you cannot select additional parts to optimize. You can look at this reason if you enable a setting named optimized row if no op. It will show you exact reason why data parts cannot be selected.
So it sounds that he have already done it and he sees can't select parts. No?
Yes, it is possible if all data parts already have enough size. And there is a limit on the size of merge. By default, it is 150 gigabytes. If the sum size of data parts is larger, optimized query will refuse to work. But if I remember correctly, if you write optimized table final, this threshold will be removed.
Okay, let's move on. So the next person is building a web analytics application, which is pretty similar to Yandex Metrica. So hits, clicks, page views, and stuff like this. And he wants to build a materialized view to create sessions. So what is the recommended way to do so?
It is difficult to create sessions directly in ClickHouse. In our web analytics system, Yandex Metrica, we create and calculate sessions with a separate data structure that is not ClickHouse. It is separate custom data structure like customized in-memory database, but it is not completely in memory. It is hybrid in memory and in SSD. And it is used to calculate sessions. Sometimes you can calculate sessions inside ClickHouse, but this solution will be not very efficient. Sometimes you can use time slots function to select some events that are close to each other. But usually you have some separate, you should have some separate solution.
Okay. The next question was partially discussed, but someone have just asked again. In China, it is important to have support for local CPU vendors like Lungson. ClickHouse by default compiles on x86. So how to support these local CPU vendors?
I have already answered this question. Yes, you can try to compile on MIPS architecture. If it is MIPS 64-bit, you are lucky and probably you can spend a few days and you will compile ClickHouse successfully. It will be very appreciated if you can send us patches for this specific architecture. Mostly our code base is platform independent. We don't have unaligned memory reads. In cases when we depend on little endian or big endian architecture, we have at least comments in code, and you can locate all these places. By the way, what is the endianness of this architecture? Is it a little endian or big endian?
I haven't checked myself. Okay, I have a second list of questions, which is probably 20 long. So hang on. So can we import data from S3 compatible storage into ClickHouse automatically?
Automatically. Almost automatically. You can import data using S3 table function. You just type insert into table, select something from S3. You specify your bucket, credentials, and data structure. And data will be read from S3 and inserted into your table. But if you want to import data with some schedule or import data that is appearing continuously in S3, you will have to write some script and put it in cron.
Okay. Is ClickHouse recommended for OLTP heavy workloads where shared memory only tables are required for both insert and queries? How does it compete with memSQL row store OLTP tables?
ClickHouse is not recommended for OLTP, and ClickHouse does not compete with memSQL in this scenario. ClickHouse is not even HTAP database. It is 100% OLAP. We just pretend to do only one task in only one scenario, but we pretend to do it in the best way.
So the next one is the following. So there's a node that sometimes hangs. There is no error in the server log, and the client link cannot be established. So version is 19.15.2. What are the troubleshooting ideas?
First, you can check the stack traces in GDB, but no, it is not the first. It is if you really want to investigate that. First is to update your ClickHouse version. Most likely there is a bug in this pretty old version from autumn previous year. And if you update, most likely this bug will gone. It is already fixed.
Okay. So how to choose the proper table engine? So there is no real documentation on that, like how to choose.
Mm-hmm. There are multiple table engines for different purposes. First are table engines that actually store data. And second are table engines that don't store data, but provide some mechanisms to organize cluster or organize data from other tables. About the first, what table engine to choose to store data? In most cases, choose merge tree or replicated merge tree. Someone has microphone unmuted. You should choose merge tree variants when you are not going to replicate your data, but the recommended is to choose replicated merge tree and create a cluster with at least 2 replicas. So don't worry about data availability and consistency. Sometimes you can choose different variants of replicated merge tree. We have just replicated merge tree, replacing replicated merge tree, collapsing, aggregating. You should choose these specific options only when you understand why exactly, for what purpose you exactly need them. So this is how to choose table engine to store data. And when you have a cluster with multiple shards, you should create distributed table to organize this cluster. And also there are multiple specific table engines like buffer, merge, view, and even MySQL, ODBC. Some table engines don't store data, but just query data from external sources. These table engines are MySQL, ODBC, URL. You can use these table engines for data integration. So you can create a table in ClickHouse that will look into MySQL table. Sometimes queries from this table will process even faster than in MySQL itself.
Alexei, I think it's enough. Let's move to the next one. So how to avoid tables going to read-only mode?
Tables can go to read-only mode if the session with zookeeper is unavailable. So if there are some network errors between ClickHouse and zookeeper, and ClickHouse have to re-establish the session with zookeeper. It should do it automatically in about a minute, a few minutes in the worst case. By the way, what version of ClickHouse do you use? Is it fresh enough, or maybe you are still using some version from year 18 or 17? If you use very old version, probably there were some issues about session establishment with zookeeper, and you have to upgrade.
Are there any good solutions for ClickHouse resharding?
Yes, there are a few solutions, but I cannot say that all of them are good, because most of them are half manually. Let's consider some of them. First is to install new servers and move some old partitions from old servers to new servers to balance your data. The drawback of this solution is that data will be not sharded according to your sharding schema. You just move some data, but it is done regardless on what sharding keys reside on what servers. And you have to execute alter table fetch partition manually. You have to attach partitions manually. So just one solution, probably not the best.
There is a similar question. So if you decide to extend your disk resources, when you should install more hard drives to existing servers, and when you should redistribute data?
If your server is not constrained by CPU, if the CPU is not loaded even a half, probably the best is to install more HDD to the same server. But if your server is utilized by CPU, it's better to install more shards. And for previous question about resharding, there is another solution named ClickHouse copier. But actually, it's not for resharding within a single cluster. It is to copy data between different clusters. You can create new cluster on the same servers or on new servers and run ClickHouse copier to copy data and redistribute it while copying.
So let's move on.
Okay.
What's your advice about building cumulative aggregation? So, for example, aggregations of sales over last like 1 day, 7 days, 30 days sales.
You can use a function named running accumulate. This is designed specifically for this purpose. It will give you cumulative aggregation for your table. For example, for first 2 days, 3 days, and so on. And there is one more solution, is to use aggregated merge tree as materialized view. So you can create aggregation by days and then aggregate by month on the fly.
So next one, how to copy data between ClickHouse servers quickly?
The most efficient way is copying partitions as a whole. And we have a query for this purpose, alter table fetch partition.
WT Zhu recently met with the keeper issue of watching tasks query something is executing longer than distributed DDL task timeout. Is it related with max concurrent query setting? Since he might have hundreds of queries at a time, meanwhile there is a limitation of 100 parallel queries.
It can be related, but not directly. It related on just running queries. And actually, it is related to our new feature that I presented, named non-blocking alter queries. So you have timeout because alter is blocked. It is blocked by continuously running queries. Alter query will execute if you kill all currently running queries. Otherwise, it will have to wait. And if your queries did not just execute every time, it can wait indefinitely.
Okay, let's move on. How to build an index over an array type field?
It depends on what index do you want. Do you want to use it as a primary index or as a secondary index? And I can say that the usage of array column for primary key is almost useless, because primary key is the key that data will be sorted. And when data will be sorted by array, it will be sorted lexicographically. It means that it will not allow you to query specific elements of array separately. It will only allow you to specify that array is less than other array, or greater than other array, or equals than other array, but only as a whole, not as specific elements. But we have secondary indexes. And for secondary indexes, we have index type named Bloom filter. With Bloom filter, you can index all array elements. But secondary indexes are not so straightforward to use. Sometimes they will help, sometimes they will not. You should check.
There is a raised hand. Let's unmute.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question about killing the query. When I have some complicated query running on the distributed ClickHouse, but it consumes so many resources like RAM. So I want to kill the query by the kill the query where query ID equals, but it does not success. So I have a question about why can't I kill this query? Yeah.
Yes, there is some cases when you cannot kill some queries, because actually query can be killed only in some stage of execution when the query checks some flag. Is this query should be killed? So the query should figure out that it is killed by itself. It means that this mechanism is not so efficient. And yes, sometimes you just not able to kill this query, but that's not good. That's an issue that we have to fix.
Okay. When do we you fix this problem about killing the query?
When we are going to implement this fix?
Yeah.
Supposedly this year.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a few more questions on our list. Then we'll have some kind of after party. So I'll explain about after party a bit later. So basically, we'll stop recording and translation, streaming, and I'll allow everyone to unmute themselves and talk about whatever you want. And last few questions from chats are the following. So someone has to use hash for the primary key for some application specific reasons. And then he needs to join using this hash primary key. So are there any ideas on how to improve performance in this case?
Actually, performance should be already good and probably better than the case when data is not hashed, because processing of hashes is more efficient than processing of string columns, for example. What I can suggest, if you store these hashes in strings, it's better to convert to binary format. If you use some 64-bit on 128-bit hashes, it should work fine. Joins should process better than when you have strings instead.
Well, and the last one is, what is the open source protocol of ClickHouse?
The protocol, how ClickHouse client works with ClickHouse server.
Yeah, I think so.
Protocol is ClickHouse specific. It's not any standard, but it is about our internal protocol. We also have HTTP interface that is like REST protocol. And also recently we have implemented support for MySQL protocol. And you can use MySQL clients to connect and query ClickHouse. And there is another protocol under development. It is gRPC. So this is going to be implemented at the beginning of this summer, and you will be able to talk to ClickHouse with gRPC clients.
As far as I remember, there was a pull request with PostgreSQL protocol as well, but I haven't read it.
It is not ready. It is in active development.
Yeah, so I am out of questions from chat. So as I said, let's move on to after party. So I'm going to stop the streaming to YouTube and stop the recording and allow anyone to unmute themselves and ask any question, discuss something relevant. So thanks everyone for attending. I'm going to do it in like a minute.
So thank you for coming to our meetup. I was very happy to answer your questions.